Hi everyone. Today we have Vikas with us, who has applied for a position as a uh, DevOps engineer in Hyderabad, and we'll go through the job description and his resume and try to help him understand some of the questions that might be in the interview. Hopefully, it will be relevant for everyone who is watching and who watch it till the end. So, Vikas, if you can brief us a little bit about yourself, what sort of experience you bring, what sort of skill set you have, your day-to-day responsibilities in your current role, then we can take it up from there.
Sure, Sanjeev. So my name is Vikas Singh. I have done my bachelor's in computer science and engineering from NIT Silchar, Assam, and my master's in computer science from South Asian University, New Delhi. I have total 5 years of experience in software development. In my current role, I work as a senior software engineer at Veritas, where I'm part of the security updates release team. Our job is to release periodic security updates on Veritas flagship product, which is the Flex appliance. And in this role, we mainly focus on so the skill set that we mainly use is Python and Bash scripting. We have a framework that we have developed for releasing the security updates. So it is an automated process where it scans the product and gives a summary of the security updates available,
Mhm.
and then creates a patch. And we are involved in the end-to-end test, the build, the development, the testing, and then finally the release of these security updates. Parallelly, we are also manage an internal scanning which is customized to Veritas needs, because all third-party and proprietary softwares, they provide generic in output, but they are not customized to Veritas needs. So we also work on that. Uh,
Okay. So Vikas, so in general, like you have 5 years of experience, but mainly as a developer, you said. How about any kind?
Right.
What about like the job description requires a lot of knowledge on cloud platforms, Terraform, Kubernetes, and do you have
So,
on these areas? What sort of skills do you have?
so I have experience with Jenkins CI/CD pipeline. So
Mhm.
in our product development, our testing is entirely done on CI/CD pipelines,
Mhm.
Jenkins. So we do not create those pipelines, but apart from the creation, I am very well aware of how it functions, how to triage the issues, how to look at the test cases, so I do understand the DevOps side of the development, but yeah, I do not have experience with how to create a CI/CD pipeline. And this I've already told the recruiter when I was called for this job interview.
Okay.
Second, I do have experience with Docker, uh, because we work in a containerized environment. So that is one thing which is heavily used on the DevOps side. So I think that experience will help me if I am recruited for this job. I also have some experience with Ansible, because the product that we develop, the security update, the build process is automated through Ansible. So I do have some basic knowledge about Ansible as well.
Because you
So,
deployed patches and all on various servers. Is
uh,
that where
so
you use Ansible?
no, it's only for the build process only.
Okay.
So basically, it's like a automation framework that has been used for the build process. So the mainline product, it uses Ansible.
Mhm.
So it was natural for us to trim it down and then use the same for security updates as well.
Okay. How about other things like Terraform and any specific cloud skill set?
No, I don't have, but I have informed all these to the recruiter.
Okay. And is your skill set more aligned towards a developer role, or are you also comfortable in some sort of infrastructure like load balancers or uh, Do you bring some knowledge on the cloud or any kind of infrastructure knowledge as well?
Uh, Not as such.
So in your current role, what are your day-to-day responsibilities?
So, my day-to-day responsibilities include we mainly work on the scanning tool that we have developed. So,
Mm-hmm.
we work on it. It's entirely owned by us. So, all feature development and everything is done by us.
Mm-hmm.
In I think 1 year back, so like 3 years from now, we started on this tool. We took almost 1.5 years to develop it. It still is, in under development, but most of the things that we required are now ready. So we use this tool to basically get daily reports on what are the security updates available
Mm-hmm.
as such for that particular release. So for my product, we monitor the reports for that product.
Okay.
And once the reports are available, so we shift to the other side of the job, which is to create those security patches.
Mm-hmm.
So there we basically, we have other processes where we download the security updates available in the form of RPMs, because we mainly work on Linux servers. So, and then through our build process, we generate the security patches, and then the entire DevOps comes, because the build happens, the test cases are run through Jenkins CI/CD pipeline, and so if there are any issues in failures in the Jenkins pipeline, we triage them, because our products, they have, so like suppose if the core engineering or the mainline engineering team, they released a product X, so we release a security update on X, so we have to install our security update on that already released mainline release.
Mm-hmm.
And through our pipelines, we monitor for failures, like if the RPMs are creating any conflict or some test cases are failing, so we triage that. If there are very serious issues, we inform the mainline engineering team, because whatever we are releasing will eventually get released by mainline also in their next release, because there cannot be any regression on the security side. But if there are small conflicts, which can be avoided by, suppose, emitting any RPM, because we try to limit our scope. We are not like a product development team, so we cannot go into fixing each and every bug.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, we triage them. If there are issues which can be resolved by us, we fix them by either including or excluding any RPM, or by other changes that can be done. The updates that we release are of two kinds as of now. First is all the Red Hat RPM fixes, which are released by Red Hat side, and second is the container updates, which are used on the product. So it is a containerized application. So a lot of functionalities run through containers. So we release updates for those containers as well.
Hmm. Okay. And is that the only experience you have, or you have any prior experience as well?
In Veritas, I have spent total 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and here I have mainly worked on maintenance releases and security fixes. When I joined Veritas, we were given the task of looking into customer issues. So there I have some experience. I spent almost, I think, 6 months on triaging issues. Like if there are customer escalations, so we look into that, we triage them and try to figure out the root cause analysis, try to coordinate with other product development teams and the customer facing teams to investigate and establish the root cause. And then I got migrated to my current role, which I described. Prior to that, I worked as a pure backend engineer in my first job, which was Philips Healthcare.
Okay.
So this is the entire flow of my experience.
So if I look at your resume and what you have explained, and if I look at the job description, there is a bit of disconnect there. The job description
Okay.
requires a lot of skill set around cloud, uh, Kubernetes, SRE kind of function, whereas your experience is more on the security side, release of patches to servers or release of security patches. Uh, And this is they are talking in a high transaction stuff as well. Like for example, you are monitoring the application and their logs and metrics, and based on that, you are taking a lot of decisions, etc. So,
Right.
do you feel that there is a bit of disconnect, or is
Uh,
it something I am?
uh, I applied for this job almost 6 months ago,
Mhm.
and I mean, when you apply, so you don't necessarily look that each and every skill set matches or not.
You look sometimes you
There
look
is
at.
a motivation. There is one thing. There is a motivation to move towards the DevOps side,
Yeah.
because some of the skill sets I do have, I coordinate with the DevOps team in Veritas. When we have to get our pipelines and all created,
Mhm.
so I do understand, how it functions. Uh, because we have to only explain the requirements to them. Okay, this job, what it should do. The build job, the report job, the test cases job. So, but after 6 months, the hiring went on freeze, and recently they contacted me that they are resuming the hiring for this role. So, based on whatever questions they asked, the recruiter, I was very honest. I did not lie about anything, because I don't want to put myself in trouble or waste anyone's time. But they agreed. I told them specifically that I do not have cloud experience, because the recruiter highlighted 5 to 6 points what they were looking for in the job.
Mhm.
So one was cloud that I highlighted that I do not have experience, and one was that I'm not a pure DevOps engineer.
Right.
So, but she agreed, and said that we are going to take forward your interview and let's see. So,
That sense, you are a bit lucky to have gone through that initial screening. And uh, is there any motivation, anything you have done from your side, learning about these cloud and Terraform, Kubernetes, and other these areas? Any certifications you hold or anything that would have helped?
no, I mean whatever is there in my resume, that's all.
Okay. So company like Apple and all, usually they would, the only thing that I can think of is that they need people with strong Linux and dev experience. And probably the mindset is that they believe that they will be able to transform them, because DevOps all is pretty much about automation, that mindset of being developing new features and stuff. So that could be the reason. So maybe your best bet would be to focus on your dev and your Linux operating system knowledge, because that's where there is a connection between these two. While there are so many
Okay.
disconnects, the positive connections, I think, is that your strong dev experience, your automation mindset is what you can say. You can, and maybe some sort of communications you had with DevOps team, you can highlight that. The other positive thing is around if, because you are delivering the security patches onto Linux operating system, so strong Linux knowledge is also will be positive. So try to highlight those areas, because a lot of questions that I have or I would have based on this, we can go through them and we can see if how you fare in that. But again, you have clearly mentioned that you don't have that much uh, cloud skill set.
Right. That was one of the reasons also of, because I applied for a lot of jobs, on the backend side,
Mhm.
uh, which require cloud experience. So since I lacked that, I never got any call as such. And DevOps side, because of AI, ML and all, the field is expanding, the scope is expanding. It is moving into fields like ML ops and all. So the field is interesting, and that is
Yeah.
what motivated me to apply for the job. When you work for a big organization like Apple, I think in the DevOps role, you obviously are going to get a lot of, new projects which can help you in career. So that was the motivation of applying at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you, from your experience, apart from the security patches, because are you also monitoring any kind of application in terms of a distributed application, or developing any such application which has, say, backend user interface and stuff? Are you doing any active um, development as well?
So the security tool that I mentioned, so it is a full stack tool. It
Okay.
has a front end which is used by internally at Veritas,
Hmm.
and it has a back end. It is a containerized application.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean that is one tool, and that is a primary responsibility in my job. We have to, uh, I mean, we entirely own that product when it comes to the internal scanning of Veritas products.
Hmm. So where is it hosted right now? How is it
It
hosted?
is hosted on a server only at Veritas.
Hmm.
It's not a cloud-based hosting.
Okay.
It's into on-premise hosting. So one of appliances that is delivered to. I don't know if I should disclose all this because this will
Okay.
go on public, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean it is
It's
on-premise.
on-prem everything.
On-premise.
Okay. And that didn't allow you to explore cloud, but is it scanning cloud infrastructure as well in some way? Is it interacting
Uh,
with any cloud platforms?
it it monitors the Artifactory. Uh, but I'm little bit hesitant to share,
That's fine.
because
That's
I
fine.
hope you understand.
Yeah, definitely I do. Yeah.
Uh,
Um, so again, you all cloud related questions are gone. All Terraform, Kubernetes, all these questions are gone. Any sort of monitoring failure questions are gone. Um, the job description requires Kafka, MongoDB. Is that something you cover? How do you maintain backend your data?
so backend is Flask plus MongoDB as a database. Recently, we are migrating to Fast API.
Any reason you selected MongoDB?
It was mainly because since it is an internal tool, so the focus was more on the fast development.
Hmm.
So and because it is since it is not a customer facing product,
Hmm.
so and the scalability as such is it's not like it's dealing like a million requests
But
per
again,
minute and all
usually
that.
default choice is MySQL database, not Mongo. Any specific reason to go with Mongo?
It was basically for fast development. So if you look at SQL, so you have to ensure, the ACID compliance, I mean, the primary key, foreign key, all those
Hmm.
concepts have to be strictly followed. But when it comes to MongoDB side, I think because of the the JSON structure, because of the key value structure, you
Hmm.
know, the development is fast. So as such, you don't have to put a lot of emphasis on the structure of the data. As long as your logic is working fine, the semantics or the structure of the database will work fine. So that was one reason. Second reason was I think I won't say it was the starting reason to go for MongoDB, but one of the reasons was the aggregation concept in MongoDB. So it basically moves a lot of logic from the backend to the database. So you don't have to write explicit functions to to query the database. So I think that also helps. So yeah, these were the reasons I think for selecting MongoDB.
Hmm.
The structure of the data was also not very clear when we started the project
Okay.
because what collection would be, what value would be. So MongoDB gives you that scope, as you move forward, even if the structure changes, your application is not affected severely.
Hmm. Okay. And I also wanted to know the deployment of this product. Do you not get involved in the deployment side of things, or is it some other team manages it?
We only deploy it. So, it is hosted on a internal server, and it is basically a Docker Compose application configured using Docker Compose. So we use Git. So, like any normal project, we check it out on the internal server and then, use Docker Compose up. There's a customized script which handles other aspects as well. But fundamentally, it is Docker Compose up, which brings the application up.
Okay. So I believe there are multiple containers in this application.
Right.
Okay. And have you contributed to Docker Compose file?
Yes, I mean it's I'm part of that team, so yeah, I've worked on that.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what Docker Compose is?
So Docker Compose is basically an orchestration platform for Docker containers. So, when you have a very massive application and massive level of deployment, one may need to shift to more advanced orchestration technologies like Kubernetes and all. But if the application is small with only few containers, then the process of starting and stopping the containers could be automated using Docker Compose. Docker Compose has the concept of services where each of the container that you are running can be defined as a service in the YAML file with associated configuration parameter set. And using Docker Compose up and Docker Compose down, you can bring the containers up and bring the containers down. The ordering can be specified, what order using depends on, and the scaling parameter can also be adjusted to bring multiple. So we have one container which is scaled, and so yeah, I think this is
I know this is
I
good.
can tell.
Yeah. So, things that you have worked on, they are good and strong points about you, but there are a lot of things that on the job description that you are not aware of. So that is a clear.
Right, I understand that.
But the things that you are strong at that, and that you should probably try to drive it in that direction. So if there
Okay.
are any Kubernetes question, then you should talk about that. Even though we don't use it, we have other ways to scale it because our environment is not that complex, and it's an internal
Right,
product, so we don't expect the scalability challenges that much compared to a public facing application.
right.
Yeah. Is there anything you need help with? I because all my questions were around the job description, and we know that there is a bit of um,
Two things I had in my mind, like, one was, like a program. I mean, I was contacted almost a week ago, so I mainly worked on the programming side only. I
Mhm.
revised my Python and Bash scripting. As you told, I focused more on the automation side, as a programmer in last 1 week. So, any specific kind of like, questions that I can look into, I don't have much time now, but if any last minute tips on the programming side, like, these are the type of questions I can have a look and just, see
Uh,
the syntax and all.
I again, I wouldn't expect them to go into a DSA kind of interview, because then that would be
Right.
the
Hmm.
purpose. They would probably want to know a little bit about what sort of automation you did when you are patching multiple servers, or uh, when you are working at a scale, um,
Hmm.
pushing your security patches to hundreds of servers. So, what were your observations, or how you were monitoring the success rate? And because you are pushing it to servers at scale, some would fail, some would pass. So, what was your how you manage those scenarios? How did you program those scenarios? Those kind of questions could be there, because then there is a limited overlap between what you are doing and what they expect you to do. So I would think that those are the things that they would cover, rather than a DSA kind of thing.
Okay. I mainly looked into questions like, suppose, file reading operations and all, because as a some part of the job description does say about, investigating critical issues.
Troubleshooting and
Uh,
evaluating, yes.
yes, so that experience I have here in Veritas, because I mean, when I started, I mainly worked on that side of, you know,
Hmm.
the I mean, where I looked into failures, customer issues, when debug the logs to see, what went wrong, what could be the reason for the failure of the installations. So I had some experience. So I have appeared for one or two interviews before, not entirely on the DevOps, not purely as a DevOps engineer, but it was more like as an integration engineer.
Mhm.
And they ask these kind of questions where they, you have a log file and, how can you automate it? Suppose, we have to look for certain uh, like certain messages, or we have to pass the log file, then how would you write a program? So they asked me to write in Python Bash. So thinking on that lines only, I revised again
Yeah.
these last 1 months, practice some important.
Troubleshooting is very much
Yes.
visible in the job description because it's an SRE kind of role. So they would, apart from monitoring, observability, they would think that any sort of troubleshooting experience you can bring. But don't just limit it to uh, troubleshooting with Python or with programming in mind, but in general, how you handle those critical scenarios from an operational point of view also. Uh, you obviously things will be managed through some sort of automation in future, but what about the incident in hand? What sort of communications you will send out to your users? So just maybe do a bit of research on SRE role and their responsibilities because they are not just managing the incident technically, but operationally as well. So they would be informing their customers, they would be informing different stakeholders, they would be performing a root cause analysis after that incident has completed. So based on that, they would automate their systems further and that sort of thing. So understand a complete day-to-day
Hmm.
responsibilities of an SRE engineer as well. Even though title says DevOps engineer, but there are a lot of SRE aspects in the job description. So
Okay.
look at those things as well.
Sure.
How do they manage the like for example, a typical question then there might be there that there is a production issue and how do you manage it? So you will obviously look at logs, but you would do a lot of things around it, or your entire team will do it. But that complete picture maybe you can try to paint.
Got it.
All right.
Yeah, I think I also don't want to, think too much at this stage.
Yeah, don't worry too much about me. Anyway,
Uh,
it's just few hours away. So
right.
just go with
Mm,
what you can
mm,
present in this one, and try to like it's not a cheating or anything, but even if you have some conceptual knowledge of cloud or something, you try to highlight it rather than saying that I don't know absolutely anything about it, but try to give them some confidence that yes, it's very like I have some awareness about this. I have learned it online or through some, even though we are not entirely on cloud, but I have done some courses or I've done some sort of self-study and I'm preparing for some certifications in future, even though my job does not require it or my organization doesn't need it, but I'm doing it from my self skill development.
sure. I
Keep it
think, yeah,
going.
the language is important.
Language is crucial.
Uh,
What else? Maybe I don't know if it's in the first round there would be behavioral questions or not, but companies like Apple, AWS, and these FANG companies, they look at behavior aspect as well. So,
okay.
uh, how do you take feedback? Give us a scenario where your manager was not in agreement with what you delivered, or they gave you a negative feedback. So, how did you handle that situation? So,
Okay.
these kind of questions, I am not sure if they do it at Apple in the first round, but do check it as well. Maybe one or two tricky questions.
I Right. I have that experience. I have given interviews in past, so I think, I mean,
How do
the
you
pattern.
how do you manage that? The star method?
So I mean, normally what I do is I, just take few days just to revise everything, whatever I have done,
Mhm.
in my organization, because it's very difficult to recall, exactly, in that moment.
Right.
So I just, 10 to 15 incidents I recall, and, I just uh, try to, categorize them either positive or negative. And then, obviously it's the star method, but as such, I have never specifically, described it like that,
Right.
situation,
Obviously.
task, and,
Yes.
all
You
that.
wouldn't touch
But
upon
yeah,
that
the,
you
the
are covering
concept,
that. Yes.
The concept is that.
Correct. Correct. Obviously, you will not say that this was the situation and this was assigned,
Right.
but that template is something you have in mind.
Right. Correct.
Always in this format.
That is how you approach.
Okay.
Right.
All right then. Wish you luck and
Thank you so much.
share us the feedback how it goes. And where did you apply? You applied on their career website.
Yes, on the career portal.
All right. Thank you so much.
Mm,
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.